In 90 to 115 degree weather, having to bend your back for 8 hours with only a 30-minute break in between. That is something that my parents, like farm workers to this day, had to undergo for numerous years of their lives. The passage of the Farm Workforce Modernization Act hits remarkably close to home. It is incredibly heartbreaking to witness the demanding work that farm workers put in day to day, knowing they face a vast number of challenges and earn so little in exchange. Without our hardworking farm workers, we would not be able to enjoy our favorite summer snacks such as watermelon, melon, cherries, tomatoes, and oranges. Farm workers who are dedicated to fulfilling the daily requirements so that produce aisles can stay stocked are responsible for the crops we see in grocery stores. During the pandemic, farm workers were among the only people who continued to expose themselves to viruses and other pesticides in order for America's grocery stores to stay supplied. With summer crops such as the harvesting of juicy watermelon and melon like the ones my mother picked, or peppers like the ones my father picked, and even garlic and onion you can enjoy this summer, farm workers are the ones facing the struggles with very little in return. Very few farm workers are even provided with water. They are essential workers who deserve to visit their families, whom many have not seen in decades, with the security of returning to the United States to keep the industry moving. Many farm workers are treated inhumanely by their employers, and unfortunately, it is something that to this day, in 2022, they still face because of the lack of secure citizenship status. I came here today to share my story and advocate for those who work so hard yet have been silenced by many, including their own employers. It is crucial for the men and women who feed our country to obtain a path to citizenship. They deserve to visit their loved ones who they worked so hard for. Hola, mi nombre es Anisa Pérez, hija orgullosa de Anabel y José que han trabajado en los campos de California. Quiero agradecer al representante Griez y al Congressional Hispanic Caucus por organizar estos eventos para resaltar los problemas que afectan a los trabajadores agrícolas. Queremos que el Congreso pase las tarjetas azules, lo cual son muy importantes para los trabajadores agrícolas. Ellos y ellas merecen un camino hacia la ciudadanía. Thank you for your time. I'd like to now hand it over to Chairman Raul Griez of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus.
Thank you. Thank you, Anisa. I appreciate you sharing your family's story of resilience. This is great pride in coming from a family of farm workers. And I'm also proud to say that I too am the son of farm workers. Thank you to everyone for joining us today and to send a clear message to our farm workers that we stand with you and we fight alongside you. I am Congressman Dr. Raul Griez, an emergency medicine physician, public health expert. I represent California's 36th district and I serve as chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Today, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus had the honor of meeting with over 20 key national and local organizations that advocate for farm workers who, despite carrying the burden of injuries and illnesses during the pandemic, kept our country fed. We thank Dolores Huerta and the Dolores Huerta Foundation, United Farm Workers and the United Farm Workers Foundation, Farm Workers Justice, Alianza Nacional de Campesinas, TODEC, Líderes Campesinas, Centro de los Derechos de Migrante, FIDE, Food Bank, Desert Healthcare District, University of California Riverside School of Medicine, National Migrant and Seasonal Head Start Association, Child Labor Coalition, Migrant Clinicians Network, Rural Coalitions, Cierto Global, East Coast Migrant Head Start Project, and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute. Aside from these distinguished guests, we had many CAC members who were represented, some of which will be speaking here today. We also like to thank the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the U.S. Department of Labor for presenting at the Policy Roundtable and making sure the organizations are aware of the resources available for the community. And we know we also have the support of senators like Senator Alex Padilla, as well as leaders like Chair Lofgren and our great leader, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who will speak after I do. Together, we want our campesinos to know one thing today, that we have their back, that estamos con ustedes. Today, we discussed issues around healthcare, education, housing, workers' rights, and immigration. One important topic of conversation that we're stressing and highlighting now is our discussion around the Farm Workforce Modernization Act. Across the country, from vineyards in California to fields in the Midwest and ranches in the South, growers are concerned about an unstable workforce and a labor shortage. And farm workers work with uncertainty and fear of being separated from their families. The COVID-19 pandemic has heightened these concerns, and unfortunately, this uncertainty and labor disruptions are contributing to the destabilization of our farms and to higher food prices. This Congress, CHC, led the advocacy for, and House Democrats passed the Bipartisan Farm Workforce Modernization Act under the leadership of Speaker Pelosi, with the hope that we can finally provide our farmers and farm workers with the solutions that will stabilize and modernize our farm worker workforce, keep families together, and provide a pathway to citizenship for our essential and vital farm worker workforce. We thank Chair and author of the bill, Representative Zoe Lofgren, and co-author CHC members, Representative Salud Carbajal and Jim Costa, for their leadership. Now, we only need 10 Republican senators to get on board and pass this out of the Senate to make it law. And we say to them, let's get it done. Let's get it done today. The CHC is doubling down on ensuring that we never stop fighting for our farm worker community, and I plan to continue to work with our colleagues to address the pressing needs they face. We will fight con puño y fuerza to ensure that farm workers' labor rights, immigration status, access to education, healthcare, and housing are secured. Together with advocates across the nation, we stand strong in our resolve, strong in our fight to protect farm workers and farm worker workforce and their access to healthcare, education, housing, workers' rights, and citizenship. I'm proud to stand with you all today to let our farm workers know, juntos podemos, sí se puede. Thank you. I'd like to now introduce Speaker Pelosi, and after Speaker Pelosi, Senator Padilla.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Our distinguished chairman held a session this morning, and actually here at this press conference laid out a wonderful agenda, the challenge that we face in passing this important legislation and the importance of this legislation. I'm honored to be here with my colleagues and welcome Senator Padilla over to the House side of the Capitol, and we look forward to hearing from him. Let me just say that the farm workers are like family to all of us. They put food on our tables. They make sure that that happens. This legislation that Chairman Ruiz so clearly showed the importance of is something that has bipartisan support in the House of Representatives. It is supported not only by the farmers, but by the growers. This is a good work of legislation. Zoe Lofgren, Jim Costa, Mr. Carbajal, Mr. Cardenas, so many who are here, and many of whom will speak. So this is not something that is casual or incidental. It is fundamental. It is fundamental. For all of us, it is a great privilege to be standing before you with the great legend, an icon in our country, Dolores Huerta. We celebrated her 90th birthday recently. I won't say how many years. Under the dome of the Capitol, which was appropriate because she is, as I said, a legend, an icon, a great leader. Many of us have learned from her over the years, and I hasten to say, in my case, since like the early 70s, I think it has been. So again, it's an honor. Now, let me just say what this bill does, because you're going to hear from many speakers, but I want to just say, it's twice passed the Farm Workforce Modernization Act. It was a critical victory when we did so, bipartisan farmer growth and farm worker support. It advances fair wages and more protections for our farm workers. And when I say more protections, I'm talking about more protections that are desperately needed. We've had this fight with Jerry Brown, not alongside Jerry Brown, going way back when, Dolores. It offers a pathway to citizenship for millions of undocumented workers and improves access to quality housing that you took up this morning. Very, very important. Again, we came together with the caucus the other day to talk about immigration, writ large. We need comprehensive immigration reform. We need DACA as we observe the 10-year anniversary. We need to pass that and the Promise Act, the Dream and Promise Act. So House Democrats are calling upon our Republican colleagues to end their shameful blockade of these vital bills. Join us in honoring our farm workers as we draw strength to fight for the fight ahead. Let us draw inspiration from the immortal words of today's guests of honor, Si se puede. Si se puede. And now I yield back to the distinguished chair of the... Oh, am I supposed to yield to the senator?
Either way.
Okay. Well, why don't I take California pride in you, Mr. Chairman, and in our senator. From day one, or even before that, in his role as Secretary of State and a leader in our great state of California. But from day one in the United States Senate, he has taken ownership of this issue. He has brought great dignity to it and great support from his colleagues in the Senate. We just have a few more to go. Let us welcome Senator Alex Padilla.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, Chairman Griez, all my colleagues that are here, all the advocates and activists that we keep working together to keep this a priority for this session of Congress. Proud to advocate for immigration reform because no state has more at stake in it than the state of California. But we know how critical it is for the entire nation and our economy to recognize the critical value of our farm workers. Day in and day out, farm workers show up to the hardest jobs in America. Whether it's in the midst of a once-in-a-century global health pandemic, whether it's in triple-digit searing heat, whether it's being surrounded by smoke because of nearby wildfires, or in pouring rains. Farm workers show up day in and day out so that the rest of us can keep food on the tables and our grocery stores' shelves continue to be stocked. In my opinion, farm workers were essential since long before the COVID-19 pandemic. But during the pandemic, the federal government formally recognized farm workers as essential. Anybody who agrees that farm workers are essential should then also agree that we should treat them as such. Farm workers, like so many other frontline workers for the last several years, are heroes. And they need to be treated as such. And I'll also take a point of personal privilege of sharing that just a few weeks ago, I'm told I became the first United States Senator to accept the invitation of the United Farm Workers and the Farm Workers Foundation to not just visit, not just a photo op, not just 30 minutes to an hour, but working a day in the fields alongside dozens and dozens of farm workers.
Not half a day, a whole day.
To experience what it's like. It is hard work. But to help uplift the work that they do, the sacrifice that they make, not just for themselves and their families, but for all of us. And by elevating them, keeping the pressure on here in Congress to advance the Farm Workforce Modernization Act and immigration reform overall. Proud to say that my colleague in the Senate, Senator Cory Booker, just last Friday became the second United States Senator to accept the invitation. And we're working on more. But we're working on more senators, not just to accept the invitation to work in the fields, but to show up and cast their vote, to do their job here in the Senate to pass the Farm Workforce Modernization Act and immigration reform overall, because farm workers have earned a pathway to citizenship. From an economic perspective, I think the Speaker mentioned this a minute ago as well, as did Chairman Griez. All families across America are facing the reality of increased costs in so many categories, not just gasoline, several food items as well. Talk to any business leader, any economist, and they'll tell you a labor shortage is contributing to inflation. Immigration is part of addressing a labor shortage in the agricultural sector. And so we can't give up. We will keep up the fight, and we will get this done. Brevemente en español, ¿verdad? Mucho orgullo estar aquí con mis colegas, renovando nuestro compromiso a la reforma migratoria necesaria por nuestro país y especialmente abogando por las protecciones y camino a la ciudadanía para los campesinos que trabajan cada día en los trabajos más difíciles de nuestro país para que nuestras familias puedan seguir sirviendo la cena cada noche y que nuestras tiendas, cuando vamos al mercado buscando frutas y verduras y más para nuestros hijos, siguen ahí. No importa tormentas, no importa lluvias, no importa calor, los campesinos siguen trabajando en los campos y merecen mejor tratamiento, protecciones laborales y un camino a la ciudadanía. Muchas gracias, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Padilla. Now I have the distinct privilege and the honor of inviting to the podium an icon, a hero, a source of great motivation and inspiration to many of us, including me personally, Dolores Huerta, president of the Dolores Huerta Foundation.
I want to thank Dr. Griez and all of the colleagues, his colleagues here in the House of Representatives for this gathering today, and of course thank all the advocacy groups that are out there working for farm workers. And again, I just want to repeat what everybody else said, that farm workers are part of our families because they feed us every single day, and we just have to remember that. And when I say that, I want to ask everyone that is hearing and seeing this press conference to please reach out to your senators and ask them to support. Because we know that this is a very great bill that is being passed right now, but it's not going to go into effect unless we can get the Senate to actually vote for this measure. So please do us a favor. Remember, farm workers are part of your family, and you're doing your family a great service when you could ask them to contact their senators. And just a reminder that, you know, farm workers today, in many states, most of the states of the United States, farm workers do not have unemployment insurance. Farm workers do not have disability insurance when they get sick outside of the job. Farm workers do not have full workers' compensation when they get injured on the job. So, yeah, we've come a long way, but we have a long way to go to protect the farm workers. And this measure will do that exactly, will go a long way to help them. So, farm workers feed you. Okay, now it's your turn to help the farm workers. Thank you. Sí se puede.
Sí se puede.
Se ve, se siente, el pueblo está presente. Se ve, se siente, el pueblo está presente.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Representative Tony Cardenas and then Representative Teresa Ledger Fernandez. Tony?
Thank you, Dr. Griez. And I just wanted to point out that when Senator Padilla went to work in the fields in California, he didn't just go for a photo op. He didn't go for an hour. He spent the entire day there. He's my roommate, and trust me, he doesn't complain about how his back feels, but I know what it's like because I come from 2 generations of American immigrant farm workers. And in my office, I am so proud of the painting that I have of my mother's father, who came here in the 1920s to be part of the #1 industry in California, agriculture. And my father, who came in the 1940s as they're working together picking potatoes with a smile on their face. I emphasize that because our farm workers in the United States of America, they may not be citizens. They may not be documented to be here, but trust me, they are our brothers and sisters who are at our breakfast table. They're with us at lunch, and they're with us at dinner, and yes, they provide our dessert. That's who they are. They are with us. They are present with us by the hands that they use every single day so that we can take for granted everything that we sustain ourselves with, all the food and things that we enjoy at our finest restaurants or at our own kitchen table. So I just wanted to be here today and say, yes, we need to remind every single member of Congress that this is not an immigrant issue. This is not a foreign issue. This is an American issue. This is about the American economy. This is about sustaining life. This is about making sure that our children, when they go to school, they can have that lunch program, because it just doesn't materialize by itself. There are working hands, human beings who sacrifice themselves. I know everybody who's out there today, we're sweating. We're trying to look cool, but we are sweating. Can you imagine getting up before the sun comes up and not being able to leave the fields until the sun goes down, knowing that you don't quit? They don't quit on us. We can't quit on them. We've got the bill out of the House of Representatives. We have several immigration bills out of the House of Representatives. We need the Senate to now do their part and join us in making sure that we bring justice to the president's desk so that he can sign it, so we can have justice for farm workers across our great country. This is an American issue, not an immigrant issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony.
Hello, and thank you very much to the CHC for having me. I'm Teresa Leger Fernandez, representing the beautiful and beautifully diverse 3rd Congressional District of Nuevo Mexico. And I'd also like to point out that Nuevo Mexico is the home state of our wonderful Dolores Huerta, porque sí se puede con ella y con nosotros. So think about it. Think about Sunday. Everybody shared a meal, a barbecue, a brunch, with your fathers, no, el Día del Padre. And what did we begin with? We began with a prayer to thank our Creator for the meal, to thank the chef, to thank those who were surrounded us. But did any of us at that moment say a prayer for the farm workers who toiled in insufferable conditions, but in conditions that they did was? Did we share a prayer for them? Did we give thanks to them? Did we act? And I think that's it. We cannot pray over our food and give thanks for our food if we don't also act to support those who bring the food to us. And so we are here porque no están olvidados. We are not forgetting our farm workers because we have done what we needed to in the House. And we are here to ask that there be 10 Republican senators, 10 Republican senators willing to, when they say that prayer of gracias and that prayer to the Creator in however language you wish to say it, that they also commit to honoring those who picked that food, who milked those cows, who prepared those pollos. We need to ask them to remember how it got there and pass the Farm Work Modernization Act in the Senate. Ahora es cuando that we need that. Because it's right. It's an American story. It's an American need. And we are not so callous, are we? We cannot be so mean-hearted that we would let the politics of a moment to take away from the dignity that must be afforded the farm workers. Do we know? Does everybody know that children of farm workers, as they're working in the field, do not receive the same benefits and protections of the rest of our children? How do we let that happen? We cannot let that happen. And so I thank all of the groups who have brought this back to us, who have told us what they can live with and worked out a compromise. This is supported by the businesses. This is supported by the agricultural businesses because they know they need this help. They know they need these workers. They know that. And so we need them, every one of them, to call their senators, especially if you're living in a state that has a Republican senator. Let them know how important this is for our economy. And so I say one more time, thank you. Y Dios te bendiga a todos. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Representative Teresa Leger Fernandez, Vice Chair of Communications for the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Now I have the honor to introduce Griez Kashkuli, Vice President and Political Legislative Director of the United Farm Workers.
Thank you, Chairman Ruiz. So you've heard today about the importance of the Farm Workforce Modernization Act. You've heard from Anissa Perez why it's important. You've heard from Chairman Ruiz and Speaker Pelosi what's in the bill. You've heard from other members of Congress and the legendary Dolores Huerta on why we need to have it now. And here's just the final things I want to share. When farm workers across the country, both through the pandemic and before the pandemic, when they were harvesting the food for everyone, every American to eat, not a single one of them asked if they were harvesting the food, milking the cows for a Democrat or for a Republican, for a red state or a blue state. They showed up in the heat, the snow, with snakes to feed every American. And in the Farm Workforce Modernization Act was first passed by the House when Donald Trump was president. Speaker Pelosi helped, and Chair Lofgren, the Hispanic Caucus, came together and brought the United Farm Workers together and other farm worker organizations with agricultural employers. It wasn't the bill the United Farm Workers would write. It wasn't the bill the agricultural employers would write. It wasn't the bill that the Speaker Pelosi or the Hispanic Caucus would write. It wasn't a bill that all Republicans would write. But in the end, all the Democrats, including with the incredible leadership of the Hispanic Caucus and Chairman Lofgren, and over 30 Republicans voted for it in the House. And today, I'm pleased to report that Senator Bennett, working diligently on work that had picked up with Senator Feinstein, is working very closely with Senator Crapo to follow the lead of Republican Congressman Mike Simpson, who was who key in this issue, very close to introducing the bill in the United States Senate. They need to hear from a few more people. They need to hear from all of you. That is how we can pass it, because for the first time in 20 years, we have a bill that's passed the House, we have Senate leadership that say it's prepared to put it on the floor, and we have a president who says that he will sign it. And for the senators who are still thinking about whether they're voting yes or no, we invite you to take up the challenge that Senator Padilla took up, that Senator Booker took up. At the end of Senator Padilla showed up at 6 in the morning. He worked a full day to 3 in the afternoon. At the end of the day, a reporter asked a UFW member named Ignacio, how did Senator Padilla do as a farm worker today? And Ignacio said, well, Senator Padilla has the heart and he has the work. He has the makings of someone after several years. He could be a good farm worker. But what he did today was show that he is a great United States senator. And that is the job of the senators. So para todos los senadores que todavía están pensando si van a votar sí o no en las tarjetas azules, recuérdense que los trabajadores del campo no se preguntan si están cosechando por los estados rojas o azules, si están cosechando por las personas que son demócratas o republicanos. Cosechen la comida para todos los Estados Unidos. Y ahora es cuando los senadores que no quieren votar sí, invitamos a ustedes por un día nada más, trabajar con nosotros en el sol este verano. Sí se puede.
Sí se puede. To close, I just want to tell a story that encapsulates the struggles that we experience day in and day out in farm worker communities. In the Coachella Valley, we host these healthcare fairs with the flying doctors and others to provide healthcare for those that are uninsured or do not have access to clinics and doctors. There was a man who passed out while having a dental procedure, a farm worker who needed to go to the hospital. They called 911, an ambulance came. He was going to be transported. I asked where the family was, and I transported the wife and the daughter to the hospital where the father was going to be. I was volunteering as a physician there while as a congressman. So one, there's a lack of health care and health care access. Two, I was having a conversation with a young lady and asking her what were her dreams. And she said that she's going to be an immigration lawyer to help defend her family from family separation. And so I started asking her, what clubs are you in? Do you know any lawyers? What do you do after school? Are you participating in other leadership extracurricular activity? And she looked at me and she said, I have no time to do any of that. because I have to wake up early in the mornings before my parents leave and help my 4 siblings get ready for school. Then I have to walk them to school. After school, I pick them up, I come back, I start cleaning the house, and I start the meals in the evening so that by the time my mother comes home, she can help me finish, and then I help my mother put all the kids to bed and go to sleep. And by that time, she said, Dr. Griez, I am exhausted. I am exhausted. And this is in a school with 50% push-out rate of students because of the harsh labor and requirements and on the families. This is on top of the fear and anxiety that she has that one day she'll come home from school and her parents will not be there because they will have been deported, despite the essential work they do to feed America during this pandemic. There's a whole host of issues. This is on top of that same community who's drinking arsenic in water because there's not enough and adequate infrastructure for clean water in the community and not an adequate enough housing for the dignity in which they have. So these are the topics that we discussed today. And all of this focusing on making sure that we get 10 Republican senators to do right for America, to help us stabilize our workforce, to help us reduce costs of groceries, to help us heal during this pandemic with the nutrition that we need, and pass the Farm Workforce Modernization Act. With that, this concludes the press conference. I want to give thanks to Dolores Huerta, all the speakers who were here standing alongside all the different organizations that work day in and day out, those that traveled from all corners of our country to start the initiative to create the farm worker agenda that this country has so desperately needed for so long. And we can take individual questions as the press sees fit. Thank you very much.